From the kitchen of the cabin, it's the 5 Games for Doomsday review. Arkham Horror, the living card game. I was 17, hair down to my nipples. I spent my days red-eyed, twitching the buttons on a joypad, falstering in clothes I'd been wearing for a fortnight. When I left the house, it was to pull at the shimmering shreds of my childhood or dive into the darkness of my coming adulthood, either kicking a ball around or going to Victoria Wines for the cheapest bottle of red wine I could find. In between those excursions, I would write music and read books, sleep and half drowse, the prose from Jane Eyre sloshing around my pot-addled brain with the jangle of the Beatles and the nightmare growl and scream of spinal meningitis got me down. People floated in and out of my life. I slept on the sofa of a dirty communal home, and after I got fed up of people waking me up when they came over to buy weed, I slept on the landing. Later would come university and then endless hours of drudgery, but for a year, in between school and sixth form, when middle-class kids could travel to Southeast Asia and find themselves, I wallowed in the filth of my adolescent indolence. I took drugs. I half-finished things and watched my friends be beaten by dealers and speedheads they owed money to. I took acid and wandered the Shropshire Hills and baked a hardened cynicism that has served me terribly ever since. Also in that year I discovered H.P. Lovecraft. It was through a game of Call of Cthulhu. I'd never played an RPG before, but was instantly enraptured by the whole thing. The web that my friend Duncan weaved that night was thrilling and terrifying and engrossing. It infected me with a fever for Lovecraft that has never subsided. The king of the arcane adjective and the italicized final sentence, Lovecraft can veer from the absurd to the hokey to the absolutely terrifying and manage to keep a hold of you through all of it. I found Lovecraft at the right time, as I was ripping myself from the claws that Christianity had sunk into me through my schooling. I was ready for the chaotic, the absurd and the nihilistic. Lovecraft's fixation on our sheer insignificance excited me. I was ready for his truth. The truth. That we are tiny, inconsequential animals, living in a vast universe that barely knows we're there. We conjure up gods to help us feel less lonely, but those conjurations will die in millennia. A flicker of a flicker in the age of the universe. Soon Christ and Allah will go the way of Shamash and Ishtar, and before the universe has taken a breath, the earth will be consumed by its star exploding. Lovecraft taught me this as an adult teenager, barely a year after my father had died, and it stuck onto me. But unlike Bethlehem and Golgotha, those stories were my choice, not foisted on me by tradition. I wasn't even expected to believe they were true, even though they held much more truth than that blood-bound book on the lectern in my local church. That's why, when I found hobby board gaming, I fell straight into the trap of H.P. Lovecraft games. Call of Cthulhu had been so effective in evoking the feeling of Lovecraft. Not so with these games. There was no feeling that there was any resemblance to the worlds of Lovecraft, other than a few place names and some tentacled illustrations. They lacked value as games, and held nothing that even came close to the source material. After that, I dived into farming and ancient commerce and games of betrayal, but always eschewed the Lovecraftian until the Arkham Horror LCG came along. I was apprehensive, but I needn't have been. The Arkham Horror LCG is the best Lovecraft game on the market, and I haven't regretted a single pack I've bought. In the game, players take on the role of investigators trying to unravel the mystery of the mythos. There are various roles that can be taken with various decks that give you various skills. There are those that can shoot monsters and strong-arm gangsters. There are the bookish that winkle out the clues needed to progress, those in touch with magic and jacks of all trades for when you're feeling indecisive. After you choose your class, you play through a scenario that comes in a deck of cards. This can be exploring a haunted house, losing yourself in a demon-wreathed forest, or being thrown into other worlds. These scenarios come in cycles that link together to form a greater narrative. There is levelling up by the buying of new cards, and you can be scarred, carrying penalties from scenario to scenario. You can go insane or be mauled to death. You can also save the world, but in true Lovecraftian fashion, every victory will be tainted by misery and madness. The best thing I can say about the Arkham Horror LCG is that it feels like Lovecraft. There is tension here and there is dread. There are brief explosions of action that leave you bloodied and dazed. This is a game that knows its material and stays faithful to it. That's not to say this is an RPG though. This is a rigorously designed card game that is every bit as tense and exacting in its gameplay as in its narrative. The asymmetry of the character classes is pronounced, and you really feel that you are fulfilling a unique role in the team. There will be scenarios that will suit your character and others that will suit the people you're playing with, but there can always be moments where you can jump in and make that last-ditch attack or find that clue and save the day. The scenario design is exceptional in this game, not just for the mechanical hoops it makes you jump through, but the way the cards are used physically to convey story. The cards are used as geography in this game. They can be laid out as a mist-drenched path, a sleazy speakeasy, or a carnival in Venice. The story is the goal here, and the mechanics, scenario design and writing come together so well that every play feels cohesive and engrossing. This is not just a tentacle draped over a set of mechanics like so many Lovecraft games, but a tireless and successful attempt to drown you in the world of the mythos. The centre of this game is the Chaos token system of resolving skill checks. Skill checks are resolved by comparing your attribute score with that of your foe, be it a library shelf or a gibbering maw. Then you draw a token from a bag, which is added to your score to determine whether or not you succeed. These tokens range from the laughably positive to the hideously negative. Throw in a few special tokens that can completely ruin your day, and the innocent cup sat at the end of your table holding a few cardboard tokens can become a fearful receptacle of doom. It is the fear of these tokens that drive your decision in the game and push you through the story, and it does it beautifully. Surprisingly, the writing is also good in this game, which is so rare in board gaming. The plots are tight and the sentence is well constructed, even though they bear little of the gothic crenellation that Lovecraft peppered his prose with. And this is a good thing, as the writing would then seem like a flimsy facsimile. The small passages of text that introduce and guide you out of scenarios are just enough without being overbearing. This is a game that knows the distinction between a game and a novel, and uses its text sparingly. The writing helps the game tell the story, and doesn't shoulder that burden itself, which is how it should be. I am so glad that the Arkham Horror card game exists. It is a game that does admirable service to its source material by concocting new tales that fit perfectly into the oeuvre. Lovecraft gave his mythos to the world to carry, and on this stage of its journey, it's in perfectly safe hands. This review was made possible by the contributions of my patrons. You can become one too by going to patreon.com/5G4D. Thank you for listening.